G'day everyone. I'm just cracking up looking at these comments. People are already going berserk in the chat here. What's going on, guys? I think a few of you obviously should be having Coronas, I think. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to have a Corona with you guys today. I couldn't be bothered to get a lemon off the tree, so I think I'm just going to drink this as it is. So let's have a Corona and go off. Oh, I love it. I'm going to give it a few minutes on the pre-show, just so people can get on. I'm a bit later today. I was actually out this morning with a client, so I couldn't get on at the normal time at 12, so we'll have to go from now. So I'm not sure how we'll go because it is a lot later. But let me just come over to here and let's see what people are saying before we start. Now, if you're coming in a bit later, just skip to where you see the Oastler Images logo and then we'll start the show actually from there. I'm just going back to see what people are saying here. Popcorn. Oh, I love it. This guy is Jason Lanier Jr. Who you calling me Jason Lanier Jr.? Oh, my God. Dave Flynn said, David Granger said David is a Sony employee. I don't even think Matt Granger would know who I am. Casper laugh out loud. Bike Vision Scotland said Matt is easily upset these days. Casper said trolls will be here soon. Oh my God, the trolls that have been on those postings that I've put up, you wouldn't believe. I've just been laughing at them all, honestly. Excuse me. They've been going off though, that's for sure. Trev said if Granger likes Nikon, he should be happy to just shoot Nikon. Taking shots at other people's motivation is kind of lame. By Vision said, I know he puts me off, people like that. David has probably had 5 stubbies. This is the first one. Epic, Casper. Cheers anyway, guys. Nectar of the gods. Casper said pink. I should have probably put a pink shirt on. You guys, how come you're getting so stuck into Matt Granger? This is funny. Oh my God. Casper said he sees a troll. Casper said the angry photographer said he hates the Z7. I've got to watch that. I haven't watched that video yet. I'll have to have a look at that. Rui's here. Hello from Alabama. Juve said hello. Barry said hello. Hey, David. Charbox said, are you buying 1 or 2? So I'll be... If the rumours are true, like what I said the other day, I'll be getting definitely 1. I don't think I'll be getting 2, but I'll definitely be getting 1. Langston said, evening from Los Angeles. Carl's here. Charbox said, you're like a Ken Wheeler without the tattoos. Well, you need to have a look at some of my videos, Charbox. I occasionally, I don't know, that I occasionally become Ken. Oh, I love it. Carl says 9 Coronas. This is my first one. Roy says, I'm back from Japan. David, good to hear you again. Good to see you here, Roy. Vinoth said, David Oastler, when you get the Nikon Z6, I won't be buying that camera. Sunnydale said, Sony A7III user. Wayne says, stubby time. Yeah, exactly. Time to crack a stubby, guys. I haven't cracked a stubby with you guys for a while, actually. It's starting to warm up, though, so I certainly will be when it warms up here. Hello, made it to the pre-show, Peter. G'day, Peter. Jesse, hello from Adelaide. Robin Roundtree says, I'm definitely moving to the Sony A7S III. I hope they can make enough by Canon. I know they're probably going to be hard to get. I'd definitely say if you want an A7S III, when they do announce it, I'll put it on pre-order straight away. It's still hard to get the A7 III, so Jav said it starts all over again next week with a Canon announcement. I know, I'm going to cop some more bagging. You would not believe, honestly, the amount of trolls that have got onto me. Oh, my God, accusing me. I should do a video and post them because it's absolutely hilarious. You get them saying, g'day, Jeffrey. You get them saying, oh, you're just an idiot. Your work is terrible. And all this sort of stuff. And honestly, it just cracks me up. I should just fly back and say, look, I'm earning well over $100,000 a year in my business. I'm fully timed employed. I have more weddings than I can shoot, more shoots than I can shoot. It just cracks me up. So clearly my clients must be all morons because basically, they're hiring me when I just produce terrible work. And the funny thing is, I always say to these trolls, show us your work, and they never do. They can never, ever show you their work because you know what? They haven't got any. They're just geekheads that never shoot. And it cracks me up. Oh my God, it's funny. You would not believe some. I mean, I have to delete some of that bad, but it just goes straight over my head. I don't worry about it. I just laugh it off. They're just idiots. Huge amount of the Z7 and Z makes a great ashtray. You guys are going to get me in trouble. I've still got a bit of this cough. Peter Kent said, take the high road, man. I know, it's so funny, Peter, honestly. You just would not believe. And you know what? The more you become popular, the more they start to attack you, which is even funnier. I made a comment in Photomiac's video just because he put a video up yesterday about how the Z6 was not as bad as it seemed. And I just put a funny comment on there and I just said, you're just a Nikon fanboy. And you should have seen the comment that was put on there about that. And then Photomiac actually protected me. He actually said David's a good guy. But they can't even see the funny side of these things. It's like it's, you know... It's like their life depends on this gear, and you know the hate is just hilarious. It just cracks me up. Just because I don't like the Nikon and I think it wasn't a good release due to how they did it, it doesn't mean the end of the world. I mean, if you're a Nikon shooter, you either like it or you hate it. I mean, I've bagged Sony before many times. Oh, it just cracks me up. Do they change when you pre-order? I'm not sure what that means. Langston said, that's my other at show as your work. I know, they never will though. These trolls will never show you their work. Phil said, hi from Traralgon, Victoria. I'm kind of glad I couldn't get the A7 III. A7S III will go on pre-order when it's announced, making the move from Canon. Aiko said, I made quite an intense video on why I switched from Canon to Sony 6 months ago. Now I'm getting lots of intense comment from Canon fans. I know, they just need to chill a little bit. It just cracks me up. G'day, Michael. How you going? Anyway, I've got a bit of news to show you today, so we're going to start the show in a minute now, seeing that we've got now a number of people watching. If you can, guys, please give us a thumbs up. We're going to go through the usual thing, which is going through the news and rumours and stuff like that, and then we'll have a whole heap of question time at the end. It's a good idea to put the @David Oastler on the question, though, if you do want to make sure that I don't miss the question, because otherwise sometimes it's just hard to get through them all. I tried to get through them all, but if the questions are way too long and we're here for 5 hours, I'll have to stop. But be ready for a long show. If it's not what you want, you might be better off to log off and log back on when I put the timestamp on later on, because you know, we we do tend to go for quite a while. Anyway, so let's get back, and I'll come back to this a little bit later. So I'm just going to switch over to the logo because this is where we're going to start the show, guys. G'day everyone, I've just cracked a stubby in the pre-show. I'm having a Corona with you guys today. Oop, better turn it the right way around. I should have put a lemon in there, but I couldn't be bothered to get one off the tree. So cheers everyone. You know what, I'd love to make some t-shirts, crack a stubby or time to crack a stubby. Get some merch going on this channel, what do you reckon? Hit it with a few slangs like, you know, time for Vegemite or something. I am laughing. I mean, if you watch the pre-show, you'll know why I'm laughing. It's not because I've had a few beers. This is the first one I've had today. Anyway, so I've got stacks to take you through today. I'm going to have a little bit of a chat about the video that I put up the other day, which the trolls on the net are going berserk. It's really quite funny. So I'll talk to you about that from my perspective before we even start the show, and we'll go through that. And then I'm going to go through all the Sony rumours and everything else that we can talk about, and then we'll have time for question at the end. If you are wanting for me to make sure I see your question, make sure you just put the @David Oastler. It just means that I can see basically what's going on. I try to answer them all, but depending on how long the show goes, I think the last one went for an hour and a half, so just be prepared for a long one. Sometimes I have to skip some depending on how long the show actually is going. But again, guys, this is all for you. It's just basically like a bunch of mates getting together, having a chat. If you don't like that type of format, well, switch off. But this is like me being with mates, talking to you all, and like we're all around having a beer together and just having a chat. So let's start anyway, because I thought I'd talk to you first about all this stuff about the cards. Because so many people got so upset about it, and it's been cracking me up thinking, well, if you want to shoot with one card, and this is what I've said to a number of people on that post that I put on about I'll never shoot with one single card again, and this is what people don't understand, that they're having a go at me by saying that I'm just bagging Nikon and all that sort of stuff. But if you watch the start of that video, I actually said that I was one of the people in the beginning that was protecting Sony for only having one card. And I did always do that because I'd never had a card that had failed. And that was one of the amazing things. I was a bit blasé about it, like probably what some of these people are that keep going in, that you never have a card fail. I had one guy comment this morning saying he's searched the net and he's never found a professional photographer that's had a card fail. Well, what does he think I am? I mean, this is the way people are out there. And I was very blasé about this. I actually did think, well, I've never had a card fail, and I hadn't. I did back it up, like I said in that video, with this during the day, particularly in weddings and stuff. But it did scare me when I had that card that actually failed. And that was in the A9. Luckily, I was saved because it was a paying shoot that I couldn't reshoot. It was actually a dance concert that I got good money for, that I was paid for. And I was saved for actually by the JPEG files on the camera that I could still use. So I was saved in that context of what that shoot was. Now, if that was a wedding and I'd shot that, or even if I'd shot that dance shoot with my A7R2 or the A7III, which only had one card slot, I would have been screwed because the files were no good. And then I've had people say you're not putting the cards in right or looking after the cards. Well, I can tell you that's not true, because I always format my cards in the camera. I always never ever delete the files on the camera, because I know that's one area where it can get corrupted. So I do look after my cards, and I am always gentle with those cards. This was just a corrupt card, and it can happen. Now, it's like anything out there that, why do you have a backup of your computer files, hard drives? Because in case if there's a failure in one of your drives, you've got a second backup. Why do we now all wear seatbelts in our cars when we never used to wear seatbelts in our cars? That's in case if you have an accident. Why, if you ride bikes in Australia, motorbikes or even push bikes, do you have to wear a helmet? That's only to protect you if you fall off the bike. It's not that that's going to happen, it's just in case. And this is what people have to understand, that I changed my mind completely when that happened to me, because I thought, wow, if that happened to me once, it could happen again. And that's why I put that little thing there saying I'll never shoot an event or anything like that, or a paid shoot again with a single card slot camera. Because if that was a wedding, look, I'm covered in my contract. I'm covered in my contract for hardware failure. But I could not live with myself if I missed a wedding, like if I missed the first kisses due to the fact that I didn't have that card in there. Now, people have said to me, okay, well, you can use two cameras. But it's very hard. I do fusion with two cameras, but it's very, very hard to be shooting something like the first kiss with two cameras at the same time. And what I'm saying here is that normally you're only shooting with one camera at a time. And I do have two cameras when I'm doing photography. I'll have two different lenses. But when I'm shooting the first kiss, I'm still only using one camera. So if that camera fails, I've missed that shot. Now, yes, I do have a second shooter there, but I've still missed that shot. And this is the thing that I'm trying to say to people, that you owe your clients everything. That when they're paying you money to say capture something that cannot be replaced, I'm not talking about in studio, and this is where I think Matt was really trying to justify his Nikon, bias in that respect, I think, and that was the problem. He kept going on about studio, but there's not that much work out there for that type of thing. Most of the work out there is for being outside doing portraits, doing baby shoots, doing weddings, doing events, doing all these sort of things that are one-off events. If you go on holidays, would you like to lose your whole holiday? I've got friends at the moment that are travelling around Australia, and it's horrific because they've taken, I think they've been gone 6 months or something, and they're doing this amazing trip of a lifetime with their children. They've captured all of these beautiful photos, and their hard drive failed the other day. They never backed up their hard drive. They've lost everything. And the problem is now they've had to send it off to Darwin, which is up north of Australia, to someone to try and retrieve the files. It's going to cost a fortune. The guy wasn't even confident that they'd get them off. Now, that's happened because they hadn't backed the files up. And this is why I'm saying to you, it's not worth it. Would you like that stress of having to say to a bride or anyone out there that you've paid their shoot for that my card failed? Now, yes, people always go back onto the thing of saying, look, I was in a years ago there was only one canister of film. Years ago there was only this or this and that. But look, we're not years ago anymore. People expect now you to be able to have redundancy, and this is the thing. We're not years ago. You basically have to now treat your clients the way you'd like to be treated, and you just can't have something like a wedding or an event where you could lose the files. And like I've said to you, I've changed my thinking completely, and I'm honest about that because I did protect Sony when I first moved over. Because I always had Nikon D4Ss and cameras like that had dual card slots. And it was always in my mind, but I'd never had a card fail, so I never worried about it. That's all I'm going to say about that now anyway. I just wanted to sort of clear up, these trolls I think are actually wrong. And I really do think that nowadays the price you're paying for the Z cameras, they should have dual card slots in them because they're not cheap and they're competing with something like the A7 III that does have dual card slots. Anyway, let's get over to the news anyway, guys. So we'll go straight to that. So first thing I wanted to ask you was, let me just move this over so that we can have a look here. Please, if you haven't joined the Photography Videography School, I'd love you to join us over there because this is a site on Facebook that I've put up for you guys where you can promote your work, share your Instagram feeds, share your videos. Unlike a lot of channels out there, I encourage you to use this as a site to contact me and other users. I'm making it very positive. I don't allow anyone to be bagging people in there. We've just hit over 2,000 members now, so it's growing really fast. And I put in weekly tasks and things like that. This one has been time-lapse as well. So please join us there as well. Now, there's one thing I'd love you guys to do for me if you can. And you're probably going to say, what a wanker this guy is. But this video that I've posted, and I've put the link down below in the bottom of this link, this video that I've got here of Ellie, I think I made a couple of years ago, but it's going to be my first video that has reached 100,000 views. And so I'm so excited about it. So if you can, I'm only around about 30 or 40 views away from it. So I would love you guys if you can, not now, but I'd love you guys if you can after this. Please click on that link so I can get the 100,000. I've been like a kid with candy. So I'm so close, and it will be my first one of hitting 100,000 views. So please, if you can, click on that link and watch that for me, and I'll be jumping up and down and probably celebrating with another Corona. So yeah, please join us there because it's a fantastic site for you guys, and I'm basically making it all about you guys. The only thing you can't do on there is do a live because that's for me to do. Apart from that, I want you to share your work. I put weekly tasks on there. You can share your YouTube feeds. You can share everything to do with your business. So please join us there. Okay, so first story. Sony have launched this new rugged card. Now, I'm not going to go back on the spiel that we had just before because I've already finished that, but I wanted to talk to you about this because it's interesting how Sony have brought out another card. Now, I'm not going to take too long on this because I did post a video yesterday on this, but they have produced this tough card, which they're saying is a steel body, and there's no little adapter there, what do you call it, where you can lock your card and things like that, which is what they're saying fails. I've had those little things fall off, the read-write protector, and there's also no ribs. But have a look at the video I posted yesterday because I go through in depth about it. But I'll probably get a couple of these when this comes out, just to try it and see how it is. There was pricing listed, and I can't remember, someone did post on my video yesterday about that card, but it's the same speed as basically the one I'm using now, which is this one, which I'll show you. So I use these at the moment. Let me just come back to here. So I'm using these at the moment. Now you can see the read-write protection on this side over here. And if you look on the back, you can see, I don't know whether you can see them, but you might be able to see the little ribs that run down the side of this card. There's little ribs that run sort of through here and through here. Now, they're things that can break off, and this is what they've worked out that causes these issues with some of these cards. And they do a test where basically they have a machine that puts pressure onto the cards, and these break really easily, whereas the new ones are way stronger than the other cards. They're also waterproof. Fully waterproof, that they can be submerged for 72 hours, which probably means that's the testing. They can go for probably almost forever. So they're going to be good cards. I think they were around about $200 for the 128 cards. but I'm probably going to get a couple of these once they come out. It may not be that I put one in the second slot, but I might put one obviously in the fast slot, and then the second slot I'll just use a normal SanDisk card or something like that. So in the second card, I'm using this actual card. I'll show you what I'm using. So that's what I'm using in the second card. I don't really need to use those other ones in there, but they're what I'm using at the moment. So I might replace the good Sony card that I've got there, put that in the second slot, and put one of these Tough cards into my main slot. And they come with great utilities to actually check. Remember, you only have so many read and writes that you can do with these cards. So they come with great utilities where you can actually check the card to see if it's still reading and writing correctly, and it'll tell you whether you should throw away the card, because they're not infinite in the amount of times you can actually do that. So this is a great feature about this card. And it also comes with a recovery utility in case if you do have a card that corrupts as well. There's one other issue I've found where I did have problems, and I can tell you about that too, and just to let you know in case if you ever try this. Sometimes if you run batteries into, well, it'll be any camera actually. I do occasionally do video, as you know, and sometimes I use battery packs that go into the actual camera itself, so you can basically run for a lot longer. And I've noticed sometimes if it doesn't sit quite right, or the battery moves and it loses a bit of a connection, it corrupts the files on the card. So you've got to be very, very careful if you are running external batteries into the Sony cameras, and probably any camera. But I've noticed that a couple of times on different cameras, running these third-party batteries sort of that go directly into your camera. It's not charging from the USB, it's actually replacing the battery. I don't think do I have one here? I'll just check, because I think I've got one. Now this is actually the Sony one. You know, this is the dummy battery that actually goes into your camera. And like I said, I've found that sometimes, I don't think it's the battery, it might even be because it then goes into an external battery so you can run for a long time. I think that's where the connection is the problem, because sometimes those connection on the batteries actually move. I don't think it's the actual connector in the camera itself, it's those batteries, and if it does do something, I've had files corrupt, so just be careful with that on the card. So anyway, so that's the first story. So I'm interested in getting these. I think they're going to be released next month, or October, I think. So we're not far out, but the second that's available, I'll let you know, and I'll put a link or something, and I'm going to buy them myself. The next story, this is quite an interesting one. I'm going to get some hate again, because this is going to be interesting. Cheers, everyone. The Sony A7 III is outselling the Nikon Z cameras according to Amazon in the US. Now, this is a really interesting comment here on Sony Alpha Rumours, because basically the Z cameras have only just come out there on preview. You would expect those cameras to be selling like complete hotcakes. And I'm surprised at how far back they're actually selling, and I'll show you that in a minute. But they're saying that the A7 III is in higher demand on Amazon than what the Nikon Z cameras are. And it's interesting to see how, I'm not sure how many Nikon said they were producing early on, but I noticed they were saying that they were going to be now further down the line because demand was so high. And it's interesting, after the amount of time that the A7 III has been out, that the A7 III is still in more demand than what the Z cameras are. And we can have a discussion about that in the chat a little bit later, but I thought, wow, that's a really interesting comment. And there's graphs and stuff. I'll put these links down below that you can check. But it's really quite interesting to see how high in demand the A7 III actually still is. And I think if you're looking, because I checked, then I thought, well, look, I'm going to check what the main sellers are on Amazon. And the interesting thing is here that the Sony Alpha A6000 is the #1 selling camera on Amazon. The A7 III is the #2 selling camera. Now you're going to be blown away by the number of Sony cameras that are actually in the top here being sold, which is just incredible. So the A6000 is still selling like hotcakes, and this is best sellers. They're talking about overall. Number 3 is the Sony A6000 with a lens. Panasonic G7 is number 4. Number 5 was a Canon EOS M50. 6 again was another Sony A6000 with lenses. A5100 was number 7, so that's even still selling quite high overall. Then you've got the Canon EOS M50 with lenses there. You've got the Lumix GH5, which is number 9. Number 10 is Sony Alpha A6000 with this kit. Number 11 is the A7R II. Number 12 was the A5100. And again, 13 is Sony. 14 is Sony. Panasonic G7 is 15. And number 16 is the Nikon. Now, I suppose number 16 here, this is talking about overall sales. So I can understand why this is down there because it's only just been released. So I think this is showing how many sales they've had overall. So you'd expect the Nikon Z7 to be down there at this stage, and obviously it'll go up as it sells more cameras later on. But it's interesting if you're looking at overall sales, how many Sony cameras have been sold. But let me know in the chat what you think about this. It's really interesting that the A7 III is still outselling the Nikon Z, which has just been released on Amazon at the moment. Next story. This is updated. Now, this was updated on the Sony Alpha rumour site this morning, which is really interesting. They're saying an SR1 now, so it's quite low or unlikely to be announced. What they're talking about is that it's going to be announced on September the 14th. I never really expected this camera to be announced at that time anyway. I always said to you that I expect this camera to be announced later on. And there's reasons why, because if I scroll down here, you'll see that what they're saying in this, the likely specs for this camera, which is similar to what I put out the other day. It's a little bit different, but I've said all along that this new 5.6 million dot EVF is not available. They've said that until November. And they said that early on when this was announced. This was announced a few months ago. So this new EVF is not going to be in production until November. So clearly they're in no rush, I think, at this stage to announce the camera. Now, I do think that if the Nikon Z cameras had had an unbelievable announcement, this may have changed things a little bit. Remember, we're still waiting on Canon, which is meant to be next week sometime, I believe. We're still waiting on Canon sometime next week to release their specs, and depending on what they are as well, and I did put a video about that too if you wanted to go back and have a look at that. But if they do a fantastic announcement coming out about the Canon, that may also make the timeline for announcing this A7S III move forward or move back, depending on what the announcement is. At the moment, I don't think Sony are threatened at all. Clearly, those the Nikon Z cameras have not threatened Sony one little bit. I think they would have been fropping around the Coronas. You know, they would have been drinking and partying, or what do they drink in Japan? I can't remember. Anyway, they would have been having those over there because I don't think they would have been upset about that release at all. So I think they're probably now going to wait definitely until Canon do their announcement, and then they'll have a think about what they're going to announce after that. Because what they're saying here is that it's going to have obviously that new EVF, which is going to be incredible. It's basically double what we're dealing now with the A9 and the A7R III. So that EVF is going to be outstanding. You can bet that it'll have no blackout, things like that. If you're doing manual focusing, it's going to be incredible. And remember that the better your EVF is, really the easier it is, particularly if you're doing video work. Now, I can see this EVF is probably going to be in the next A7III or the A7R4, whatever those cameras are, but it's definitely going to be in the next cameras, I would say, or the new A9, if that's going to come out next year. They are saying it's going to have 4K 60p. But unlike the video I posted yesterday, they're actually saying in here that it's going to have 10-bit 422, yes, but not internal, and that's a pity. But cheers, everyone. I am still hoping that they could do this internal, but I'm not sure they will, because they may not want to take it away from the SF5s. I'm not sure about whether they'll give us that, but I'm pretty certain that you'll get at least 10-bit 422 external. which then obviously matches what the Sony's, what the Nikons have, and whether Canon give you that, we still have to wait and see. Clearly, they're saying there that it'll have new colour science. Well, that's a given now because every camera that Sony has released has had the new colour science. The dual card slots, yes. The Z battery and a clunkier grip. It'll probably have the same body, perhaps, as the A9 and the A7R III. Now, whether they then can throw in things, no one has said yet whether it's going to have an internal ND. I'm hoping, keeping my fingers crossed. I'm also hoping that it has an articulated screen, but I'm not certain whether we'll get that. But the interesting thing too is they're saying a new 24 megapixel quad pixel sensor as well. So interesting specs. They're also saying in here that it'll have new log profiles. I'll just scroll down here a little bit. 5K 24 frames per second, 4K 60 frames per second. They're saying it'll have 1080, 180 frames per second, so they're upping the frames per second. 10-bit 422 via HDMI out, and a new log profile, S-Log4. So they're also saying there's going to be a new log profile put into this camera as well. So it's so exciting, and I was that excited the other day when I was reading those specs, because I really do think that Sony are going to do what they did with the A7 III here. I think they're going to put out something that is going to just blow everyone away, and I really do believe that, and that's why I'm starting to get really excited. As I've gone more and more into video, now that I'm shooting Fusion, I'm really excited about what Sony are going to do with this camera, and I just can't wait, you know, and I do think it'll probably have the A9 focusing in it. It won't have the 20 frames per second, obviously, because that's going to be kept for the Sony A9, but I do think it's going to have the probably the same sensor. It's probably going to be tweaked for noise, and there's no reason why they can't tweak that sensor for noise. I'm sure that they probably can, and I'm just so excited about it. I really can't wait. So yeah, I'll be like a kid in a candy shop probably when it's released. I hope they don't let me down, but I will be. So they're really interesting. Another couple of things too. If you're looking at roadmap, now before we do that, this is what I think. So I think you're going to see the A7 III announced at Photokina or Photo Plus. I'm not sure yet which one of those it's going to be announced at, and like I said, it could depend on how the Canon announcement is next week or the week after. So I think once that's announced, we'll probably get a better idea about what's going to happen here. So I do think we're probably going to see the A7S III announced at Photokina or Photo Plus. And they're saying here that that's probably what they're guessing at. But there's a few other things too. Obviously the A7S III. They're also saying a 24mm 1.4 GM, 135 1.8 GM, so they're finally going to put out a 135. Sigma SR4, so that's now quite high, is a 70-200 f2.8. That could be a really nice lens. Sigma 50mm 1.4. Zeiss fixed camera lens. Well, we're still waiting on that. There's rumours, but they've taken stuff off this morning apparently. And also a Zeiss 40mm Bata. So things are looking really exciting about what's going to come out in the future. And these will all probably, I think, be around Photokina, which we don't have long to wait for that. Anyway, that's great rumours. Next story. Sony have announced another couple of compact cameras. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but these are quite interesting if you did want to go on travel. I love, as you know, this little beauty that I've got, and I've had so much fun with this. And I did post a video with this as well, and I'll show you how I'm setting this up on the gimbal. Let me just grab the gimbal. So the beauty with this is that I've put the mount actually onto the Crane M here, and then basically all that will do is, I'll just see, I probably won't be able to get it in. All that you then have to do is just connect it in, and there's no balancing or anything now on the actual camera. Oh, hang on, I can't get it to go on. I think we changed the mount. Yeah, I did. Actually, I took the thing off the other day. Basically, let me see if I can turn it around, just see. And then basically it just clips in, so you can see there. So I've got to turn that around. We took it off when we went the other day. Now, the beauty then is that I then don't have to balance this at all. So I can just take it off, put it back on again. Take it off, put it back on again. Because it's got that mount built onto the actual Crane M, all I have to do when I take it off is to pull that off. And so this has been a fantastic way for me to do shooting, because I do hate it if you've got to rebalance it and everything each time. Now I can then just throw that back onto the Crane M and then it's automatically balanced. And all I've done is just put the well, it's not an Arca Swiss one, it's actually a Manfrotto one, I think, onto that. And it works fantastic. It works brilliantly on the Crane M. So I'm so happy with that setup. I'll have to do a couple of videos and test it for you so I can post it, but that's working great. But it would also be a really nice travel lens, because the zoom on this is pretty crazy. It's a 24 to 720 millimeter lens. It also does 4K recording. I suppose it's timed though. It'll be timed like what mine is, 5 minutes or something, I think. But that's ample for me. But it seems like a really nice camera to take away. I am actually tempted to get one of these for travel and have a 720mm zoom. And you know, I could then travel with this for the low light, and then I could travel with that one for the travel stuff if I wanted to just grab a zoom picture, because I was really surprised at how well the Mark V, the RX100 Mark V went. Check out that video I posted down below. You'll be really surprised how good it was. Handheld video, and that's without using the gimbal because I never took it. Handheld was really quite good in 1080p. It wasn't as good in 4K, but it's definitely usable in 1080p. You know, you've got the flip back screen, which is also fantastic. That will have the same, it's got the same flip back screen in that camera. Beautiful. I mean, it hasn't got the features like this camera, but the thing I love about this camera, particularly the RX100s, it's just like using my bigger cameras. The menus are the same. Everything works exactly the same. So I'm really tempted to have a look at buying one of these for travel just to see how it goes, just for that zoom. I believe the better ones, the one with the zoom, is around about $500 US. So yeah, I might buy one of these when I do my next trip, just to take both, because I could easily put both of those in my pocket and I've got everything covered. Fantastic. So let me know what you think about those. There's actually two models. There's a HX95 and there's also a HX99 as well. And like I said, it's got a 2470, it's got IAF, the control ring's similar, so it's got similar functionality to the RX100. Quick startup, AF time and things like that. So yeah, nice. Last story before we open it up to question time is Adobe. This is really interesting. If you're running an old version of an operating system, you're going to have to change over shortly to a new computer, because what Adobe is saying is that they are now only going to support Windows 10 from version 16.7 onwards, and Mac OS X El Capitan from 10.11 onwards. So if you're running those or lower, you're going to be able to use the current version of Lightroom, but you're not going to be able to update it. So now Adobe are actually forcing you to get a new operating system. So you'll find if you can't run the latest operating systems due to your machine, you're going to have to buy a new computer. So that's a really interesting thing. And I think they're saying in here that... well, they're not saying when the next system's going to come out, but they're just saying it was released on September the 30th, 2015. Yeah, that's where they're saying that was released at. So anything new that comes out from now, apparently, will not be supported if you're running those older operating systems. So, yeah, interesting. So let's go to questions. I suppose we're going to have a stack today. So I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. Cheers, everyone. Please do, guys, if you can, give me a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. It just means other people will watch. All right, so let's go through some of these questions. So fire away anything that you want answered or whatever. Talking about Matt Granger at the beginning there. Let me go down to where we were. Let me come down. Grey Suit said A7 III 24 megapixel or 12. I don't think the A7 III is going to be 12. I've got a feeling it's going to be between 16 and 24. I'm not sure about where they will put that camera, but I don't think it will be 12 megapixels. I really think they're going to have it up somewhere around that 16 to 24 mark. We don't know for certain yet, but I think it's going to be way more than 12. Nez said, David, I think Nikon fans were just heartbroken. I myself am waiting on the new Canon mirrorless with a single memory card slot. Well, I hope, Nez, that they don't do that to you. I really, and I've said this all along, and this is quite funny where people were thinking I was just being a Sony fanboy, but I want Canon to succeed and I want Nikon to succeed because there's reasons why Sony haven't announced the A7S III, and I can tell you that's probably because they're still waiting to see what these other announcements are. If we don't get competition, they won't innovate. And I really want that to happen for you guys. I want them to do good camera releases because, you know what, if Canon did a fantastic release of a camera and it's a great vlogging camera with a beautiful articulating screen, I might buy that camera because I'd love a great vlogging camera that has, say, the Canon autofocus and that I could have an articulating screen with dual card slots and then I can record myself. I would love that. Trevor said, I shot Nikon for well over 10 years, and as someone who likes Nikon, I think they held back on some features, and that's a mistake. Yep, they did. They definitely wanted to protect their digital SLRs, and that is so stupid in their thinking. I'm really disappointed in Nikon because they really should have not held back. People that have digital SLRs are still going to buy their digital SLRs, and they still will for some time. But they're forcing anyone who is thinking like me that I'm not going to shoot with dual card slots to not buy that camera. And that was so archaic in their thinking, and I really think they made a mistake there. I really do. 5 Minute Film said, I love my Sony A7R III. It's better than the A7 III. That's fantastic. I'm glad you love that camera. Langston said, I'm curious about if the Canon folks are still considering the switch to Sony given the announcement coming up. Well, I'd tell any Canon user at this stage, Langston, to not do it. Wait to see what Canon announce first because they may do a really good release. So it's worthwhile to wait for that first to see what happens. Kev's here just in time. Sizzleman said, yes, the show's on. David Johnson said, good to see you, Michael Maestro. Orlando said, do you think the Sony A7 III is going to be 24 megapixels? I just discussed that, Orlando. I'm not sure. I think it'll be between 16 to 24. I don't think it'll be 12, though. Peter Kent said, I've been seeing a few A7R II bodies on sale at $1,300-1,500. I'm very tempted. It's still a great camera, Peter. I've still got mine. And I still do use it at weddings. But now, because of this thing that happened with my memory card, I'll always take the picture with the A7R II, which I'll use, but at the same time, I'll then have them post, because I only use it in post shots. Then I'll have the bride staying the same, and I'll grab the A7R II and I'll take A9 or the A7 III, and I'll take a shot again, just in case if there's a problem with those card slots. I am paranoid now about that, and I don't ever want that to happen to me again. So I do still use it, but limited. It's still a great camera, though. Carl said XQD cards never fail ever. There has been reports. I've had people talking on the thing about they did have them fail, Carl. It's not also, remember, it's not only that they fail, but sometimes you can get them where they break or the pins actually break in the camera and then your camera's unusable because you've only got one camera slot. That's something you've got to remember. Carl said, do you think if they put an internal ND in the A7 III it can work in an automated way based on your exposure, or will it be manual? Well, I think it'll probably work the same way that this does. You just put the ND on or off. If they're really good, they'll give you an electronic version that you control. I'm not sure you'll get that, though. It might just be with like this, which is you just turn it on or off. And it's amazing on this camera. I was holding it over there. I love that ND on this. That's the best feature about this camera when I'm doing videos. Even for stills, because you can do slow exposure, long exposure stuff in the daylight because you can add that ND on there. It's so good. Canon definition, general law principle by which something is judged. I'm not sure what that means. Jesse said, going to switch from Canon 6D to Sony. Should I go with the A7 III or the A7R III? Mostly landscape, do a little astro. If you're just doing landscape, Jesse, I'd get the A7R III. definitely for landscape, because you have pixel shift as well on that camera, and it's the more resolution that you have for landscape, that sort of stuff, that's definitely a better camera. So I'd get the A7R III for landscape. The Panda's here. G'day, Panda. Chubbuck said XQD cards will fail, get lost or stolen just the same as SD cards. Peter said the internal ND in the FS5 and 7 has a smooth auto HD feature. Yeah, I don't think they're going to give you the same ND as that though, Peter. I'd love it, but I just don't think you'll get that in that camera. There's got to be some reason that they'll make you want to go up to an FS5 or 7. Panda said, I had a card fail and it was a Sony SD back in 2014. Sampo said, I work in the computer industry building them and all electrics fail no matter how expensive or how good it is. No one's saying you should shoot with one card, but I'm too lazy to reshoot. Carl said, and wow, now I really want an internal ND. Yeah, so do I. I would adore them to give us that. Even if your camera has dual card slots, it's useless with video. How's that, Cuba? Because you can save dual card slots to both cards. I don't understand why you're saying that is the case. Peter said, what was your card that failed, make and model? It was I've had two actually that went. I had one really early, but it was years and years ago. That was a SanDisk. But that was when I was basically just mucking around, so I never counted that one because it wasn't in a live shoot. The one I had fail was the Sony one, which was that one, which was the better Sony. This one. That one. Now, I sent it off to Sony. They actually asked me if I'd send it off to Japan, so I did. And they sent me a new one back. And it was just a corruption that came on the card. So it was nothing that I actually did. It was just that the card failed. Chubbuck said, why? Record video to both cards at the same time. Exactly. M. Hoff said, I can only watch for a few because I have an important brick wall to shoot. Oh, I love it. Yeah, don't forget those brick walls. What else? Carl said, even for hobbyists, if the card fails, it costs money and time. And you still lose your memories, don't forget. Chubbuck said, 2 of my SanDisk cards have failed, one Sony and one Lexa over the past decade. Has said, that seatbelt analogy is brilliant. Also, why would you pay a lot for a camera that has the same specs as a camera that is a couple of years old and cheaper? If a card fails, swap it with a new one ASAP. Most likely you can read the images from the failed card. The problem was with what happened to me, and I've heard from other people that have had similar things, even with SanDisk and stuff, I had corruptions that were all over the card. The problem was when you looked at the back of the card, the back of the screen, you couldn't see them. And this is the problem with what can happen sometimes with these memory cards. You can have corruptions in the card that doesn't show. And that's what happened with me. I only saw it when I downloaded the images onto the computer into Lightroom. That's when I saw it, and the files were unusable. They sort of had light streaks going right through them all, but it never showed on the preview. So that's a problem. So you've got to be aware of that you might not know there's issues, and that's the problem. Trev said, if data redundancy is critical, you need 2 slots or 2 cards. It's just that simple. Exactly. The problem is, and this is what people keep telling me, this is what I had these people talking about this on that post that I put on yesterday, was that defending only having 1 card for paid shoots. And after what happened to me, there really is no defending for what happens, because you know in the back of your mind that you could have a failure. I was too blasé when that happened to me before, because I always thought it would never happen to me, and it did. And that's why I posted that video. It wasn't to have a go at Nikon. It was to say don't risk it. Remember, at the end of the day, you can't risk losing your client's files because you have to face that client. Now, yes, it's in my contract, like I said before, that I'm covered in case of hardware failure, but it still doesn't fix that word of mouth. And that's the problem. They're going to say, why did it happen? Why didn't you protect it? Why didn't you have a card with dual slots? That's all they're going to care about. They're not going to give a hoot. Your client is not going to care that you lost the file. They're going to want to know why, and they're never ever going to recommend you to anyone else. Yes, you might be able to refund their money to them, but you can't replace that moment. You can't replace the first kiss. You can't replace that baby being baptized. You can't replace those sort of memories, and that's what I'm trying to say to you. It's not worth it. And then I got people saying, oh, you can have 2 card slots fail. Why don't you have 3 card slots? And that's ridiculous. I have never, ever heard of anyone losing 2 shots in a single shoot. The chances of that are probably almost impossible. It could happen, but almost impossible. And again, you could still back up during the day like that. But, these people are just, they're not thinking. And the problem was I was trying to make them think that if you're running a professional photography business like I am, everything to me is clients. The only thing that matters to me is the reputation I have with my clients. That's the only thing that matters to me. Now, you trolls that get online and start saying, there's nothing wrong with 1 card slot, they're never going to fail. I thought like that, and it happened to me. I was saved because I had a dual card slot. How much clearer can I be to you guys out there that it's not worth it on a paid shoot if you can't replace the shoot? If it's like you're shooting in a studio and you're shooting a bit of still life or something like that you can just reset up again, yes. But even then, I wouldn't want to have to say to the client, look, we've got to reshoot it. If it's tethered, yes, but then you can back up those tethered shoots immediately that can go to a hard drive. But if you're dealing with a camera and you're dealing with being out somewhere and you haven't got redundancy, you are dicing with like not wearing a seatbelt in the car. And this is the problem. If you have an accident and you're in a car without a seatbelt, you've got far more potential to die than if you're wearing one. And that's, I am a bit passionate about it, guys, because it happened to me and I would have been devastated if I couldn't hand that over to the client. I would have been so embarrassed. It could have cost me working with that client later on, and that client is a big paying client. And I'm so thankful that that never happened to me. Also, Carl said there too, if a roll of film failed, it was 24 shots, not 100. But the thing was too, Carl, you had no choice in those days either. You didn't have cameras with dual card slots. Your clients expect you to have the latest gear. They expect you to be able to protect those memories. It's just expected now. So, and like I said, you can't go back to the past because we've changed. What else have we got? Cuba said someday they'll add backup to the Cloudlight smartphone. You're probably right, they may. Michael said it's Nikon's fault. Nikon is making it easy to bag on them. When you do all of those different marketing hype promos and drop the Z6 and Z7 equivalent to an A7R2, well, it's just say the thrill is gone. And this is what I can't understand about Nikon. They saw how Sony got bagged. And they really did see how Sony got smashed in social media about their battery life and about their dual card slots. I mean, smashed. And you all know that. All you Sony shooters know that because we copped that for 2 years until the A7III and the A7R III and the A9 came out. And then for them to release that, I just can't believe they did that to their shooters. Trev said, I think the choice of QXD made it impossible to fit 2 readers. I don't know. Perhaps the processor's not strong enough. Peter said, the only issue I've had with the card in the past 15 years was a SanDisk 64 Ultra, but I was able to recover all the data with recovery software. Trevor said, but at least they should have tried 1 QXD and 1 SD slot. Yes, I agree. Langston said, I don't wonder why Nikon went the way they did, considering they saw the pot shots at Sony. And that's what I've just discussed with you guys, that, everyone did slam Sony on that. And I think it's, and like I said to you, I want Nikon to survive. And I'm probably going to get someone in here saying I'm bashing Nikon. I'm not, guys. The thing is, I want Nikon to survive. I am not the type of photographer that Sony's everything, They're the only thing that means anything to me. They're not. I want Nikon to survive because that's not a threat to me. I don't give a hoot how good Nikon cameras are. I don't give a hoot how good Canon cameras are. I'm glad for you Canon and Nikon shooters if you're happy with your gear. But I think Nikon have ripped off their users. I think that they've basically made you still buy the digital SLRs, and that's not a good thing. What else have we got? Panda said, fix the screen. Oh, did I not click on the screen before? Sorry about that. I sometimes forget to click on it. Nikon does not have to put dual card slots. They can put one built-in SSD storage and one card slot. That'll make everyone happy. Yeah, they won't do it though. Coda said, now it should them less time to deliver Mark II. Well, perhaps they'll put that in Mark II. I certainly hope they will. Charbok said, you've moved your screen sharing too much to the left. How long ago was that? I hope it's fixed. Charbok said, I'm not buying the Tough until there is at least 256 gigabyte capacity one. What else have we got? Just scrolling down, otherwise we're going to be here all out. Carl said sold out, meaning delayed, but it's a camera crap. The thing is, I don't know. Nikon haven't said how many they've got to produce of those cameras. They've just said it's sold out, but how many does that mean it's sold out? You know, did they produce 10,000 and then they're saying sold out? You don't know. I mean, it means nothing when they say it's sold out. Now you're going to have to wait. They have obviously issues in delivering because you still can't get the D850 after 12 months. Uncle Elias said Nikon probably didn't have a large initial stock just in case they weren't going to sell quickly. It could be the case, I don't know. They may have sold a stack of them. Eric said, why are they selling all these single card slot cameras? I've got no idea. Danielle said, can you slow down? Sorry, it's an Aussie thing. We do speak very fast. I'm sorry, it's just what we're like. Venom said also, of course Sony is crushing their space. They were the only ones until a few days ago, laugh out loud. And that's true, Venom. But they've also seen what's been around for the last few years as well. I think Nikon could have done better with that announcement. Look, just think if they'd only given it 2 card slots, then the only thing people would have had to whinge about was the battery. Not putting the dual card slots was a big one on that camera right from the start. Michael said, the demand is so high, laugh my bum off. David, you know better than to believe everything you read. The Z6 and Z7 is in big trouble. Saki, yes, that's what they have in Japan, isn't it? What else are we down here? Jim said, greets, mate. G'day, Jim. I'm just trying to see if... Charbok said, I'm afraid Sony won't flip the screen. I think you're probably right. I'll be very surprised if we get it. I so wish they would. I just don't know why we can't. Can't do 10-bit without overheating, and the battery life might also disappoint, and they'll put a 30-minute limit. Well, they have to put that on at this stage, otherwise they have to pay this massive tax. So yes, until they change that European rule, the 30-minute limit will still be there. And also, Trev said N-Log is only available on video output, and that's true, and I think that's also not good. I don't understand why Nikon have forced you to, if you want to use log, to shoot to an external recorder. Not many people are mentioning that, but I think that's a really bad thing. I don't use S-Log at all. So for me, it's not a problem. But if you're a videographer, a lot of them do love using log. Now, that forces you immediately to put a monitor onto your camera. And I think that's not a good thing that Nikon did there. They should have at least allowed you to do N-Log inside. And I'm curious to know why they didn't allow that. I'm not sure at all why they never allowed you to do N-Log. Mr. Meredith said, knowing Sony, the big announcement is a 4K talking goldfish. I'm not sure what that means. What else? Shabak said, I'm going to video blog at Photokina with my A7 III with a 16 to 35 G Master. Just renting. I don't want to buy a 4K 24 camera. Well, that'd be nice. Coda said, do you think the new A7S III writes video to both SD cards at the same time? Yep. Yeah, it sure will. I'm sure it will. What else have we got? Peter said, we all know the A7S III is coming and can make a good guess what it will have. I'm really interested in the new Sony APS-C flagship. So am I. I'm going to be a bit torn. It's going to be interesting to see whether, I think even if they release an A678 or 800 or 7000, whatever that is, first, I'm still going to wait to see what the A7S III is before I buy a new A7 6000 model. Because I probably don't need both. I only really need one good camera for the way that I shoot for video. Now, suppose if you're a videographer, if you had a great APS-C camera that was really good in 4K and it shot 4K 60, you could use that as a B-roll camera. But really, I'm not doing B-roll stuff. I just don't have the time in what I'm shooting and doing fusion. So I'll probably only buy one. So for me, it probably will be the A7S III. And I'm happy with having the A6500 and the A6300. So I probably won't buy it straight away, but I may down the line. But, you know, I am waiting to see first on what the A7S III has. So I think even if they release a really good A7000, I'm still going to wait and see what the A7S III is before I get it. Where were we? It's jumped. Where were we? I hate that. Oh, here we go. Where are we? Charbox said the HX95 and the HX99 should have included mic jack. Oh, no, I don't know. That's the only problem with this too, because there is no mic jack. So I'm just using small recorders. I don't have one out, actually. I'm just using small recorders, and I'm syncing it in post. Coda said, question is, do the A9 and A7 III write video to both cards? I haven't tried it. They should. I'd be surprised if they don't, Coda. I'll have to test it and see. I'm not sure. Long Rider said, the hopes of a free world are resting on Canon, according to YouTube. What else have we got? Shola said, in your opinion, do you think that Canon can really come out first round with something better than the A7 III or the A7R III? I'll be surprised if it's better. I will actually be surprised if it's better, but I'm hoping they match it. I really do hope that they match, say, what the A7 III will be. They're now saying that they're only going to bring one camera out. That was the latest rumor I heard the other day, was that there's only going to be the lower end one now, which will be the 28 megapixel one or whatever that one is. They'll do a higher version one later on. So I suppose they're going to be trying to aim at the A7 III. But there was a few hints on that thing that I posted about that they were saying it's going to be put down to more of a prosumer type one. So they may not be aiming at an A7 III. I hope they do. But we're still going to have to wait and see. I think Canon users will be disappointed if it doesn't match an A7 III. James said Nikon might bring out a Z5 like the D5. Well, they may, but they should. Panda said he has a new video up on Chicago night photography. I watched that, Panda. It was good. Brandon said the A7S III can't be as high as 24 megapixel S series, is known for video and a low light heavyweights, 20 megapixel maximum. And that's the interesting thing. I'd be happy if it's 18 to 20 because I could still use that as a fusion camera. And that's what I'm hoping for. See, 12 megapixels is a little bit light on. I did used to shoot that with my D3S and it was quite good. But now that I'm used to 24 megapixels, I wouldn't want to go back to 12. And I shoot my A7S II in, often if I'm just shooting and I don't need the resolution, I'll shoot it in Super 35 mode, and that's around 18 megapixels, and that's fine. So if I could get around that ballpark, I'd love using it even as a stills camera. Phase 1 did announce a 151 megapixel sensor, and that's Sony. That's a Sony sensor. Jim said, will the Crane M stabilise both the A7 III and a Corona? I don't know. I think it's a little light on. I think the M is a little light for it's a little light to do an A7 III. I'll show you the one I use, which is the thing, and I'll show you the difference in size. Hang on. See, so that's the Moser Aircross. I'll step back and you'll see the difference in sizes between the two. So the Moser Air, this one, is much bigger. The motors are much bigger than what you have on the Crane M. I don't know whether you'll see that on the video, but it's much larger on this one and the Moser Air. So this will take the A7 III. But even then, it will only do like some lighter lenses, like the Tamron 28-75, the 55 I adore on there, 35 2.8 I adore on there. You wouldn't want to even put G-Master lenses on the Moser Aircross. You'd have to get something like the Moser Air or the Rowan S if you want to put, your big 2470s G-Master or the 70-200 G-Master on there. But I like to work fairly light. Remember, I'm doing Fusion, which is carrying both of these cameras at the one time, so I'm taking stills and video at the same time, so I like to work that way. So I need something that's, quite light. I've showed you that before, haven't I? I'll bring it up just to see if I can find it quickly for you. Just so I can show you exactly what I'm doing. Where are we? I know it's here somewhere. I'm meaning to do a video on it because it'd be really interesting for you to all see how it actually works. I can't find it. I'll have to show you again before. Don't know. So basically what I'm doing is I'm holding in one hand with the, say an A9 or an A7 III in one hand doing the video, and in the other hand I'm doing the stills. So let me come back to the questions. James said, what full-frame mirrorless camera would you suggest for beginners? Definitely the A7 III. The A7 III is by far the best all-round full-frame camera for the price. There's nothing beats it. Nothing even comes close. So I definitely say that one, James, without hesitation at all. Peter said, I don't think the A7S will support 6K. Well, it might. It might be just the same as the A9, which is 6K downsampled. It won't shoot 6K, but it might be 6K downsampled. Gilberto said, did I make 100,000? Did I? Woohoo! Did I? Oh, let me check. Hang on, I'm going to check. Where are we? I've got to have a look. Let me check it now. I've got to 100,000 on this. Actual size, where are we? Let me click on this one. Let me press stop. Woohoo! I love it. I'm so excited. Look, I'm going to show you. Where are we? So that video, and I just hit 112,000 views. Yes! Woohoo! Cheers, everyone. Thanks so much, guys. It would have been you guys logging on there. I've been hanging out for that for so long to get that to actually click over to 100,000. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you so much. Brandon said, Photo Store Media, that would be a dream come true with the new Fuji doing 10-bit internal. See, there's the XH3 Fuji, which is meant to be have really good features as well. If you're into APS-C, Fuji make great cameras. Michael said, David, remember we talked about Nikon saving sensors from the D850 for the Z6 and the Z7? I said that would be stupid when the D850 is guaranteed sales. Well, I think you're right, they did. Sad, yeah. Chris said, what's up, Mr. Oastler? G'day, Chris. Jim said, the odds that 2 SD cards will fail in the same photo session are not great. There are better odds that the Kardashians will actually develop talent. Oh, God. Oh, I love that. That's a classic. So I'm going to scroll down to where I see my name. Chris said the Canon 6D Mark II was heavily bagged, I suppose heavily held back, also only having one card slot. Yeah, I hope Canon lift their game this time, Chris. I really do. I want Canon people to be happy. So I really hope that they do the right thing by their shooters. Oh, it's jumped again. I hate that. Oh, there we go. Let me scroll down to here. Fathom Rocker said, I can use my GM 24-70 on my Crane 2, no problem. Yeah, I've never tried it on the Air. It might work. I don't know. I've never tried it on the Air Cross. Peter said, yet I bet Canon will rely too much on their dual pixel feature. Oh, thank you so much, Charbox. I really appreciate that. Do you think Sony, Nikon and Canon are watching? Well, you never know, do you? I mean, you never know who's watching these sort of things. I mean, my viewership is going way up on what it used to be getting. You'd be surprised now on how many people want to send me stuff to actually review. I usually knock it back. Because I don't tend to review anything that I'm not using or I don't believe in. So if I review anything and it's a review, something's been sent to me, I'll let you know. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll let you know. But you never know who's watching these things. I mean, my numbers definitely have gone way up than what they used to be, and it's growing fast. So. Joe said, go, David, go. I know, how good is that? 100,000 views on that that file. I'm so happy about that. It's taken me so long to get up there. I'm wrapped. Jim said, congrats on 100,000 view. Big accomplishment. Give Susie a twirl. Oh, I love it. Fathom Rocker said, nice one, Dave. Has said... you might be right, put emphasis on their dual pixel. Every new camera when it came out 4 to 5 years ago. The dual pixel does work really well, but I wouldn't think it's any better than Sony in the stills. And I think now that the A7III, the A9 particularly, it's almost as good. I don't think there's the gap like it used to be there. There is, some people say that the Canon is a bit more cinematic, but you can change the Sony settings to do that as well, depending on how fast and everything it comes in. But I think it's pretty close. When I used the 5D Mark IV and I had my A9 and I did video on that, testing it, it was so close in video it wasn't really worth worrying about, to be honest. Ambrose said, just subscribed today and been watching your videos throughout the night. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you've joined. Thank you so much for joining us. Photostorm Media said Big Brother is. I'm not sure what that means. Mel said it doesn't matter if Nikon and Canon is watching. They don't listen anyway. How long have we been going anyway? I'm going to get in trouble, aren't I? 1 hour, 13 minutes. I'm going to be in trouble again. Peter Kent said Fuji X-T2 versus Sony A7R II. used in APS-C mode. What do you guys think? They are the same price now. Used XT2 has dual cards, but A7R can shoot full frame when I like it. It feels like 42 megapixels. Well, the problem is it's like that same thing, Peter. I wouldn't buy that camera now. I'd get the A7III. I wouldn't buy that at all. I wouldn't buy either one of those. I'd wait for the XT23, or I'd get the A7III, which has the dual slots. I wouldn't buy, like I've said to you now, I wouldn't buy a card now that has the one card slot. Peter, if you're not using it for professional work, the A7R2 is amazing, and I still love that camera, and the files from it are gorgeous. I'd buy that over the XT2 if I wasn't using it for professional work. But I'd just get the A7R2. I'd save for that. Shaku said, your numbers would have grown faster if you were not stuck on Sony, and they probably would. Yeah, and I've just been honest to everyone. I've not tried to be fake about anything. And it doesn't mean that much to me in the fact that it's like I said early on with you guys. It's like talking with a bunch of mates. You know, I'm not worried if it doesn't grow as fast as what others are or whatever. It's just what happens is what happens. I always want to be honest with you guys. I love the fact that I'm not being sponsored by anyone, and I can tell you the truth. Yeah, what can I say? I can't say much more than that, really. Eric said, have you shot any rocking on? No, I haven't, so I can't let you know about that. Java said, the Panda photographer, it's going to get bloody. I'm not sure what that means. MJ says, appreciate the channel. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much, mate. Glad you've joined us as well. Rui said, just in case you missed, I did a video on my A7III and it recorded to both cards. Oh, thank you so much, Rui. So it will record to both cards. Thanks so much. I thought it probably would. Robert, Peter Kent, have you read reviews on the A7III autofocus has improved quite a bit? If APS-C is your thing, wait for the A6700 successor. Yeah, I wouldn't be buying the A6500 now, that's for sure. Kent said, greetings, Dave, love your channel. I think you should, another not so angry photographer. I know I should, shouldn't I? I've just been waiting on a reason to do one. Fathom Rocker, next idea for 100,000 views, Nikon versus Sony versus the brick wall. Oh, God. Peter said he's already got the A7III. Okay. Wait and see what happens. Wait and see what happens in the coming weeks, Peter, before you make a decision. Mel said, wait a bit. Yeah, and I agree. I'd wait for everything at the moment, because if they do also release other cameras, then you might find other cameras you're interested in may drop even a lot further. James said, you're the only bloke who's had a good drink. That's true. I'm having a good drink with you guys, actually. Jim said, Ken mobile angry enough to stomp on a gaggles of SD cards. Oh, what does that mean? Chris, in the USA on Amazon, the Fuji XH1 is down to $1,600 only after 5 months on the market. Launched 2000. Woo. Peter said, yeah, I'm waiting, mostly looking for a cheap backup. That's why I'd wait, Peter, because you'll find if all these new cameras are released, everything else is going to drop down in price. And that's why I've said to you that competition is great, because it lowers everything else. And you can see now there's lots of specials on Sony at the moment, obviously Fuji, things like that. So, Has said, I agree, dual pixel is cinematic, but today Sony has reached that level, if not better. Yeah, they're very close now, Has. They really are close now. Java said, I really appreciate your honesty. Well, that means everything to me, because I do just tell people the truth. Mel said, does the person who reached 100,000 views get a free case of Corona? I wish. Mark said, still waiting on Sony to give me time-lapse. I know, I can't believe they left that out. Sony, seriously, if you're watching this, that was shocking, taking that out. That's the one reason why I wanted to keep that, because it has the time-lapse apps built into it. The A7R2 has time-lapse apps, so if I want to go away and not have to carry an intervalometer, I can do that. I can't understand why Sony took an intervalometer out of their cameras. It's ridiculous. Peter Mel said it's worth waiting because the wait is not long, and I suspect Sony will start using the FZ100 batteries in future APS-C. I think that too. I think they will use the Z batteries in the latest ones. Java said the angry one said today that he recommends the A7III over the A7sIII, and I'm not joking. Well, I'll have to watch that video. Oh, that's interesting. I will have to watch that. Any last questions before we go? Tomorrow, I wanted to put a shout out too. If anyone local is going to VidCon tomorrow, I'm going over the next 2 days. So love it if anyone is actually going to VidCon in Melbourne, to pop over and say hi to me if they see me. I really would love that. So yeah, just pop over, look for me, and I'd love to have a chat with you. So if you are going there, I'd really love that. Apart from that, I'll see you all soon in the next video. So I might post a video from VidCon, but if you don't hear from me in the next 2 days, it's because I'm at VidCon for Saturday and Sunday here in Melbourne. Mark said, just open your S&Q settings. Yeah, look, I don't think S&Q is good enough, Mark. Only having one per second is not enough. I usually shoot every 15 seconds, and you can't do that with S&Q. So S&Q is not really good enough to do really beautiful time lapses. Jim just said, great job again. Chris said, just set the S&Q to 1 frame per second. Yep, it does achieve time lapse, Chris. It's not good enough though. The last time lapse I did, I was shooting one every 15 seconds. And that's about it. All right, guys, I'm heading off. It might even be time for another Corona. I don't know. So I'll see you all soon for the next video, guys. Please, if you can, give me a big thumbs up. I really would appreciate that. And I'll see you all soon for the next video. I have tried, just to let you know too, I'm not going to ask you to leave comments because I've been getting, honestly, 200 comments at a time, and I haven't been able to answer. I've read every comment because I usually put a like against it, but I haven't been able to answer every comment. I do try, and this is where I'm being honest with you guys, I'll say I hate people asking people to put comments down below and then they don't answer them. So I will say, if you want to put comments down below, feel free. But if it is stacks and stacks, I just can't keep up. So I always read them, though, and you'll know because I'll put a heart on them. I do like to always read them, but I may not be able to personally answer every single one. And I'm probably going to find that as the channel grows, that's going to get worse and worse. But I still love the interaction, though. Please join that Facebook group because that is one area where we definitely all interact. And I'd love to know your comments, though, down below to see if there's anything you think about what we've discussed today. That you can leave it there as well. Catch you later, guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all again. If I don't post something from VidCon, I'll see you all again on Monday, which will be Sunday US time and Europe time. Catch you, everyone. Bye for now.